In lieu of the exciting announcement by Mistral of their version 0.3 model that includes function calling, and our necessity for open sourcing the GPT store from OpenAI, where more specifically the run executor depends on a lot of prompt engineering, as showcased here in the generate question, where I need to first generate the question here, and then I have to run this function, which is very inconsistent. It, the run execution often fails because prompt engineering is not sufficient to run a multi-step generation process. Um, so the combination of those two factors made me really excited to experiment with Mistral's function calling model. And these are some unexpected takeaways from that experimentation. And one of the big things, one of the big features of this new model is the fact that it supports function calling. But after some exploration, this is a little misleading. Um, you can read through this yourself, but generally it showcases a on CLI chat interface here, and then just a very basic usage of, well, just a basic generation. Then there's a generation using the transformers model, and then a generation using function calling, as shown here. And this, as you can see, it's only showing one single using. It's your basically the standard go-to demonstration of using function calling using the get current weather, which is a single function or a single tool inside the tools belt, as opposed to multiple tools of functions. So yeah, it's very simple. It's not really putting their function calling functionality to the test. And it's also just generating the first initial um, parsing of the string into a function calling response, right? Like the first exchange, as opposed to showing the whole flow of function calling, which, as showcased in the original um, OpenAI function calling post, it looks a little like this. And by the way, their new UI update kind of broke everything, so um, their new UI update just doesn't support this page, so to say. Um, so yeah, normally you have this flow where you have the original user message, then the assistant response, the function call response that organizes everything according to your function call signature, and then your response, and then eventually it generates a summary. so um, so yeah, let's get into why it's a little bit misleading. Um, so right now I'm just going to showcase the basic usage of it, and um, yeah, I'm just gonna run through my code. So basically, I have some mocks here, and for the purpose of this initial run is just gonna be showcasing the query, which is what's the weather. Um, sorry, this is the wrong one. Um, what is the weather? Just the weather. What's the weather in Paris, right? We're only gonna be running that. Everything else is basically arbitrary for now. So we have the tool, same tool that they showcased in their example. We're gonna comment out this tool, which we'll get to in a moment. Um, and then we're gonna comment out these other messages. We're just doing the query, and um, here is just running the tokenizing it. And there is a thing I'm gonna call out with regards to their client, but I'll get to that in a moment as well. Um, and then yeah, tokenization. Then there's a whole bunch of logging and just tracking how long things take. Logging again, logging again. Here we're actually generating the response, and then here we're printing the output. So let's run this. I'm not sure why it gives me this error message. I tried downloading it. I couldn't solve it. I would imagine that's probably not the cause of a lot of the things I'm going to point out here. Okay, so here's the result. Um, get current weather, arguments Paris, France, and then the format Celsius. So all of that is working appropriately. As you might notice, this took 19 seconds to generate. This is that is because it's not running on GPU. And why is it not running on GPU? Well, because I didn't have the patience to figure out how to run it on GPU, nor really care to figure it out. And why is it so complicated to get it running on GPU? Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just not very familiar. But generally, with other clients, I don't have the same problems. Like for example, a transformers library, I don't have the same problem. Well, this kind of leads me to one of my big complaints, and that's that they are using um, they are using they're using their own client, which is inspired by OpenAI. Clearly, like the structure is very similar, um, but it's definitely not a fork. They do things their own way, um, and so it's really hard to keep track of what they are doing. So that is one of my complaints. So, for example, if you want to get it integrated into Light LM, that's gonna be complicated. So that's one of the points I wanted to one of the things I wanted to point out. The other thing is that is not their only client, actually. If you've used their API, you're probably familiar with their other client, which is just Mistral. Or let me just get to that, wherever that's imported. Mistral. Mistral AI. So this is pinging their cloud API services. Uh, so they have different models. That is Mistral AI. This is Mistral. Sorry. This is Mistral Common, Mistral Inference. They're both downloaded at the same time. Whatever the case, different clients for running their model locally and running it via their API, which is somewhat frustrating. Okay, so that's one of the frustrating aspects about this Mistral release. Um, the other thing, and I mean, I didn't really point it out, but there's not a whole lot. The README doesn't have a whole lot. Um, their documentation on their official site is using a different client, so it's basically useless. Um, and then they have like these examples on their GitHub that aren't very useful either. So yeah, this is kind of all we have to go on, and also they have Discord, and I mean the usual the usual forums to ask questions, but expectations are high, I suppose. So moving on, their prompt structure. Yeah, their prompt structure is never communicated. So you need to figure this out yourself. And in the process of figuring it out, um, you'll probably learn. And this is like one of the things that like comes with making your own client. You kind of need to learn the same redundant process over again because they feel like they know things better than OpenAI. So if we look at here, this is how you tokenize things. So going back to like prompt formatting, like the way you get the prompt format is by getting the tokenized response, which is here, and then they have um, this neat method or property that is tokenized, basically this encode chat completion dot text, and that gives you the prompt text, which is handy, particularly when you don't communicate the prompt structure. Two things there, kind of like um, a loaded series of words that I just communicated. One is they have their own client, so learning it is a pain in the butt, and then they don't have their prompt format documented, so you have to figure it out yourself. Um, and in the process of figuring it out, you're probably going to want to, run the whole process to know what the whole function calling process to know what the full prompt looks like in case you do want to integrate it into like some kind of consolidated client like LLM. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to run it through. Yeah, we're going to run it through the entire process. And it works. Like if we get the summary, like we're gonna remove this. Notice we have the mock ID, mock output. Um, yeah, so we're just gonna skip those steps, and this is what it looks like. The mock ID is trivial. The mock output, well, it's not trivial, but we'll get to that in a moment. So mock ID, mock output. Where's the mock output? Oh, output. Right here. Okay. So query, mock query, um, parse FC res, and mock FC output. So we'll cover those three. So parse FC res, mock query, mock FC output. So it's going to go from mock query to mock FC res, which is just a JSON loaded function calling response, as shown here. This is just the same thing we got as a response. Here, same thing. Um, Perhaps we're missing a space, but it doesn't matter. It's getting JSON loaded anyways, and then transformed back into a string. Um, so yeah, and then we're gonna get the mock FC output. You would normally hit an API for this, but we're just gonna do this instead. So yeah, we're gonna run that. So yeah, their summarization works, as you can see here. Again, I forgot to mention, why does it take so long to generate? No GPU, of course. Why is there no GPU? Well, because of their client. Once again, it is using PyTorch. Um, I assigned it to device GPU, or it's assigned to GPU by default. It's just not running on GPU. I don't know why it is, and I don't care to find out. TBH. Um, so yeah, here is the result. That is working as expected. Now, what if we were to continue the conversation? So we have a mock summary here. Um, just as a reminder, what is mock summary? It is this. It's going to be 20 degrees. Yeah, similar enough. I'm not doing any kind of like subtle prompt engineering there to break things. So let's continue with another message. Like, what should I wear under those conditions? You would expect here it would give you like a natural language response. Okay, so not a natural language response, function call. And not only a function call, but a hallucinated one. There is no such thing as get recommended clothing. It made that up. The only function signatures I have is get current weather. So, kind of a problem. Could be due to the low parameter count, um, and could also be due to the. I'll get to this one later as well. So another problem. So we have already discussed the problem with like continuing the conversation. What if we have two function calls? So we're gonna modify things a little bit, um, and we're gonna ask what is the current weather and rain probability. Good. And then we're gonna uncomment the second tool. Okay, we're gonna run that. So here we go. This is the response that I get. Um, as you'll notice, there's several issues with this. One, it's returning two arrays, which is not JSON parsable, like two separate arrays, which is not JSON parsable, and two, the second array isn't even complete. So this is not JSON parsable anyways. If we were to separate it by, let's say, a new line, that would also not work. So yeah, this, again, low parameter count, but you could theoretically attach outlines or some other methodology to encourage the model to give you a JSON output. What do I mean by outlines? Well, this is a methodology where it uses a finite state transformer to give you JSON output consistently. So you could combine Mistral's function calling model with this, and this would probably not be a problem. But it would have been nice if they communicated this, but they didn't. So you're gonna need to run into this and resolve it yourself. Um, but yeah. Uh, so these are the two main problems that I wanted to cover. I will be posting all of this on GitHub. There is also a PR that I'm probably gonna do to their Hugging Face repo at the very least to communicate these shortcomings of their function calling model to um, to spare them from having to figure all of this out themselves. So yeah, overall, I love the function calling support, but it would have helped a whole lot if you would have communicated where its shortcomings are and what I should be looking out for, as opposed to me having to like research and find that myself. Um, yeah. All right. If you enjoyed, let me know.